Welcome to e-learning, Standard 10th, Science 2, Chapter 10, Disaster Management. Disaster management is prevention of disasters or making arrangements to face it or at least achieve the abilities to face it. This chapter deals with the various types of disasters happening in the environment, the effects and the nature and scope of disasters. It also explains disaster management, its objective, and providing first aid to the victims of the disaster. Disasters are various dangerous events taking place in the environment. Natural disasters cause sudden changes in the environment, thereby causing damage to it. Example: earthquakes, floods, cyclones, volcanoes, wet and dry, famine, etc. Man-made disasters. Damage to the environment due to the use of natural resources for development of human beings. This leads to sudden disasters unexpected to humans. Catastrophic disasters. Cyclones in Odisha, frequent cyclones in Andhra Pradesh, earthquakes of Latur and Gujarat. Types of disasters: geophysical, biological, and man-made. Geophysical disasters are of two types. Number one, geological: volcano, earthquake, landslides, tsunami, landfall, erosion, floods, alkalization, etc. Alkaline soil are clay soils with high pH greater than 8.5, poor soil structure and low infiltration capacity. Number 2, atmospheric: hailstorm, meteorite, hot and cold waves, snowstorms, snowfall, cyclones, and drought. Biological disasters are of two types. Number 1, plant: forest fire, fungal disease spreading known as blister, weeds, for example, aquatic, carrot grass, and common grass. Number 2, animal: infectious viruses, bacteria, for example, cholera, malaria, hepatitis, and plague. Insects, bite of poisonous animals, etc. Man-made disasters are of two types. Number 1, unknown: atomic test, poisonous gases, accident, and unplanned action. Number 2, international: bomb blast, war, fire, terrorism, child labor, forced migration, and rapes. Effects of disasters: Number 1, floods lead to collapsing of bridges, shortage of food, flooding of coastal villages. Number 2, earthquakes lead to collapsing of houses, developing cracks in land. Number 3, disasters affect economy of the nation. Number 4, it affects social leadership. Number 5, it leads to a number of administrative problems. Number 6, disasters affect the local governing bodies. All the concerned departments are affected by disaster, and thereby the entire system collapses. Nature and scope of disaster. Taking into consideration the scope of disaster, some of the important facts must be thought over as follows. Number 1, pre-disaster phase. Number 2, warning phase. Number 3, emergency phase. Number 4, rehabilitation phase. Number 5, recovery phase. Number 6, reconstruction phase. Taking into consideration the nature and scope of disaster, only 3 aspects of disaster are important for common citizens, namely phase of emergency, transitional phase, reconstruction phase. Taking into consideration the nature and scope of disaster, only 3 aspects of disaster are important. Phase of emergency. Important character of this phase is that maximum lives can be saved by quick actions during this phase only. Various actions like search and rescue operations, medical assistance, first aid, restoring communication services, removing the people from affected area are expected in this phase. Gravity of disaster can be estimated in this phase only. Transitional phase. Rehabilitation work is started in this phase. After the subsidence of any type of disaster, it includes clearing of debris, restoring water supply, repairing roads, etc., so that it will help to bring normalcy in public life. Rehabilitation of the victims is an important aspect of this phase. Generally, different institutes offer the monetary and other type of help to such people. It helps to soothe the mental stress at the earliest if these victims are offered with the permanent mean of earning livelihood, and this is true rehabilitation. Reconstruction phase. This is highly complicated phase. This phase begins in transitional phase. People reconstruct their buildings and facilities like roads and water supply are restored. Farming practices are restarted. However, it takes long time for reconstruction. Planet Earth has experienced many natural disasters. Listening to the description of those disasters brings numbness to the mind. Most of the disasters and related unprecedented situations have been occurred in the Asian continent and the region of Pacific Ocean. Huge loss to their life and the planet Earth has been occurred due to such disasters. Generally, such conditions of natural imbalance have been arisen due to greed of economic progress of human being. In reality, old problems of several years have become fierce. Example, increasing population, its increasing needs, emerging problems out of it are now at the extreme end. Such disasters have been increased after the World War II. Condition of instability arises in the country due to various reasons like economic inequality, racial and religious differences, etc. Incidences like terrorism, abduction, social differences have been a routine now. Production and use of harmful chemicals is under ban in developed countries. However, production of either same or those chemicals which can wipe out the human race is common in developing and poor countries. Another such threat to human being is from the atomic energy plants. Nowadays, many countries are equipped with atomic energy. Out of this, risk of radiation leakage is increasing due to carelessness. Hence, importance of disaster management has become the foremost need of almost all the nations. In fact, it is most necessary for citizens of all countries because they are the main sufferers in any type of disaster. Hence, direct participation of citizens in disaster management is highly necessary. Similarly, disaster management schemes should be changed with respect to location, time, and nature of the disaster. It should not be restricted for a particular period. Overall, there may be any type of disaster. It should be overcome. Concept of disaster management has been arisen out of this only. There was a threat to human beings in Russia due to radiation leakage which occurred after a blast in atomic energy plant at Chernobyl, Russia. Its ill effects are still experienced in the region. This atomic energy plant was only used for electricity generation. There was a threat to human beings in Russia due to radiation leakage which occurred after a blast in atomic energy plant at Chernobyl, Russia. Its ill effects are still experienced in the region. This atomic energy plant was only used for electricity generation. There was a threat to human beings in Russia due to radiation leakage which occurred after a blast in atomic energy